No mai, haere mai ki Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod, brought to you by Ashley and Martin Medical Hair Centres. We have an injury-plagued but conservative All Black squad for the Grand Slam Tour. There's one new face in Tavita Mafileo, who has done it the old-fashioned way, while they haven't rolled the dice on the likes of Otago halfback Dylan Pledger. NBC quarterfinals were epic. Heaps to break down there with young stars making big plays. We'll jump into heaps of your questions this week while we don't have test footy also. We'll have ref Ben O'Keefe on next week, so please send in any you have for him about the laws and how the game works. Plus, we have another Rugby Ready giveaway for a month of free training with All Blacks guru Dr. Nick Gill's training team. And of course, all the in-depth analysis you've come to expect from James Parsons and Bryn Hall. Jippa, All Black squad out this morning. Everything just got a little heated on social today. It was quite an interesting thing with people calling for Dylan Pledger, people calling for Caleb Tangitau. There's all sorts going on social media. And it was a pretty conservative squad.
Yeah, conservative but an experienced squad that's going after a Grand Slam. You know, like there is no warm-ups here. There's no opportunity to, I suppose, get a Japanese side on the way up or a barbarian side. And I also think, like, you've got to set people up for success in their test match career, and that's the whole reason for the All Blacks 15 is to provide those opportunities back or into the All Blacks side.
Bryn Hall over in Japan. Brenna, you know, we've talked about Dylan Pledger. He is definitely a player for the future. The expectation of now, do you think that that's a step too far, maybe considering he's only played NPC?
It is a bit of a step too far. Look, I think, man, you talk around a start to a professional career, to be in the conversation, like you said, there's a lot of people kind of chucking his name in the hat to be able to be selected. But look, you got to forget that he is 20. He's just finished New Zealand under 20s. He's had a really good, I guess, first year for Otago. Hasn't even played Super Rugby yet. I think it's unfair with what is to come in terms of the Northern Hemisphere tour to be able to put him out there if there are injuries with, you know, with Finlay Christie or anybody, Cam Roygaard or Cortez, for them to be able to play in a big test match. But definitely one for the future. And I think if you are looking at the 9 stocks as well, you've got Folau Fakatava, I think, as well, who's playing some really good rugby as well. So, yeah, I do think Pledger definitely is an All Black of the future, but I think also Folau Fakatava is another person I think skill set-wise with what we kind of have talked about with nines and what you need from them. He's knocking on the door as well, playing very well for Hawke's Bay.
If you look at it as well, Bryn, like at the same under-20s tournament, Pede was the player of the tournament. It's not like he's in the Springboks. You know, like, yes, he spent some training days in there, and no doubt that will come in time for Pledger. But I do think, just to put on perspective, like there's a lot of good young talent out there, actually rushing them in can be to their detriment.
And there's also an All Black 15 coming up, right? So whether they think that, you know, Xavier Roy, Folau Fakatava and Pledger are in that mix to be able to put them on the All Black 15, then great. That's a great, I guess, introduction, even very young still, but to get an opportunity to be able to do that. But yeah, an apprenticeship role, I think we did probably see it a few years ago. You think of Geordie Barrett, I think even Artie Severe at that time when he first came through was in that kind of apprenticeship role with what Peter was doing in South Africa. But yeah, there are some really good quality nines around at the moment, and look, Pledger's definitely one of them. And I guess the fortunate thing for him is he's able to play in the semi-final to, I guess, to have his stocks go up a little bit more.
Bruno, we had a question come through from Stephen Gilliam, and he sent it through this afternoon after he'd seen the squad, and his basic question was the value of playing in an All Blacks 15 versus spending time on the training pitch with the All Blacks. Where's the balance there, you know, of game time versus, you know, getting to really know the environment?
That's actually a really good question, because I think if we look at two instances, I think if you look at a Ruben Love, who probably hasn't played a lot, and you'd have to think has been able to do a lot of trainings, but just needs those repetitions of being able to play in a game at 15, play some minutes and get some rhythm to be able to play in international footy. So a guy like him, or guys that haven't been able to play throughout the year, playing in an All Blacks 15 is probably really beneficial for them, and then going to the India tour, staying there the whole time and training through that 3-4 week period. But I think Pledger, I think both can go really well as an example. I think you put him into an All Black environment, there'll be a lot of information coming at him, especially with being so young and not experienced in Super Rugby and all those kind of things. So having an apprenticeship role, spending a couple of weeks in there to get his foot in the ground, and then possibly an All Blacks 15. But I think for more so Dylan Pledger, I think there isn't a need of rush, I believe, to be able to get him in there. He's got another year to be able to do Super Rugby, but I can understand that all players are hungry to want to play. But yeah, I think the example of Ruben Love would be better for him to play. then been able to be in the squad for the full time in that end of year tour.
Look, to credit this All Black coaching group, they've done that on New Zealand soil. This is an away tour, end of year tour, Grand Slam tour. The apprenticeship method of that is now morphed into when they're at home and getting opportunities that way. You know, there's been many of young players. I think Peter Lakai started there and now he's obviously in the team, but that's how, so that's still there. It's just not at this time of the year. The other thing I would say is, to answer that question, to be a good rugby player, you've got to play. And be the guy. The difference between when you're there is, and I've spent a bit of time in my life being the training guy, is you're doing everything to best prepare that team. You're not, and you're always running other sort of maps, or so you're not really.
You're pretending to be the opposition.
Pretty much.
Not being the All Blacks.
And whereas if he gets into the All Blacks 15, he's the guy. You got to front. Then you'll really get some skin in the game, and that's why I think the All Blacks 15 is so important. And they're playing the England 15 and then a Barbarian side coached by Pat Lam that will want to win. Like, those are two very high calibre games. I would say a level above Super Rugby.
To be fair, Carl Preston is also a person who needs to be in this conversation. Only months ago.
Well, I think he makes the All Black, Carl Preston will be there.
Because if anything, the person who should be feeling hard done by is probably more him than...
Yeah, I can understand the hype. Like, I must admit, like, watching Dylan Pledger, you're like, wow, how you know, we were even texting during the game the other night. Like, he's a special talent. But I think for him to be the very best version of Dylan Pledger, it's been a little bit patient. And, you know, rewarding guys that have stood up this year. I think Finlay Christie, in the biggest test, Eden Park record on the line against the Springboks, he was outstanding. You know, you can't forget what's happened this season. And we have 4 massive tests, 3 in particular, that will be crucial to whether we can come away with another Grand Slam. And Finlay Christie is a proven test match performer.
Yeah, and when for lack of a better term, shit hit the fan, and he came in against the Springboks in Test 1 at Eden Park.
He was amazing.
He was very good.
And he's played well. Like, and I commend the selectors. Like, they've rewarded him for playing well. Your only currency as a player is performance, and he has performed well when given the opportunity. And played his role. Like, he's come, he's gone, and he hasn't dropped his lip or anything. He's just, you know, done what Finlay does. He's a good team man, and he deserves a spot.
Yeah, but we do get to see Dylan Pledger play for Otago this weekend, Bryn. So, you know, that is an absolute upside, because he is tearing up the NPC.
Oh, he is, man. Like, yeah, thankfully we get to be able to see him. So, look, we talked about him when he was at the New Zealand under-20s, the way that he did play. And look, he's very, I think, Jippa, you actually brought up in our text, he's just a rugby player. He's very instinctive, and kind of the game comes to him. You look at that intercept, being able to see the time and space and have an opportunity to do that. So that's what I really enjoy about watching young players, and especially Dylan, in terms of what he's able to do instinctively and in choosing the right option at the right time at such a young age. So, yeah, I think it'll be good to see how he goes in the semi-final stage, and if Otago get through in that final, being able to see his development and, I guess, getting that experience of playing, not international, I guess, professional footy at a higher level.
Some players don't naturally step into the big moment. He makes them. You know, like, he created, like, match-defining, match-winning plays in a semi-final. In a you know, at NPC level, there's still a high-quality level of rugby, a high level of pressure and expectation. It is water off the duck's back, and you know, you want to keep him feeling that positive energy and aura for a long time. And if he can bring Otago a title, I've got to say as well, having commentated a lot of the NPC, Nathan Hastie's having one of his best years as well. So their little battle for jersey 9 and 21's been interesting. So it's exciting times for Otago. Like, I don't think many would have predicted them to be in the position they're in, but they've had their glue players really stand up and deliver. But I think their squad has had a lot of competition. And a good balance between youth and experience, using Liam Coltman as an example, Tamani from the Ndrua, Christian Leo Willie going back. I think his leadership's been massive in that group, and then guys like Miller and Gilbert, and you know, Umaga Jensen as well. Like, they are, I suppose, very experienced Super Rugby players that are bringing this group with them. It's infectious. Yep. Having commentated sideline at the Harbour game, like, it is infectious. You see David Latter come out and just said, let's just make it free so we fill the glass house. I think that aura of party at Tony Brown's is probably not to that extent, but it's building. Maybe it's party at Cam Miller's.
He is a man for an occasion, Cam Miller. He can kick a goal.
Oh yeah, he can kick a goal, and he doesn't show a lot of motion, but you saw what it meant to him. 5-10 seconds after it went over, that's probably the most emotion I've ever seen, which is normal for 10s. But yeah, it's a hell of a team to get behind, but they are facing a pretty strong and motivated Bay of Plenty side that just fell short last season.
Jumping back to the All Blacks, within the squad, it will be interesting to see whether they're going to use Samipeni Finau as a lock and how he goes there at test level. Yeah,
it definitely looks that way. I mean, they named him as a lock blindside, so you sort of feel like he will play that Tupou Vati role. Probably, I'm not sure, they'll probably keep with Parker there and maybe he positions himself on the bench. Where it gets interesting for the 23, does that mean it's maybe a Patrick and a Samipeni, or is it you're sort of starting your locks and hoping they're going to go the distance, and you've got a Samipeni who can cover there but is there for loose forward, and a Duplessis Karifi or a Peter Lakai there. So, or even a Peter Lakai maybe starting still. So I'm not quite sure where they'll land, but I think we'll see a fairly similar or consistent side to the one in Perth.
The approach with possibly Holland starting and Tuipulotu.
And then it's, I suppose, that loose forward makeup. Who fills that role? Because I mean, I know Duplessis played along, but he performed really well when he was given his opportunity. Luke Jason's obviously coming back into the fold. It's just a hard mix, that loose forward trio, and I think what the lock Lucy gives them is more flexibility. But I just don't know who falls, because Paddy has to be there because he's that big body. Does he start with Scott? And then Fabian's not in the 23, or do they keep Paddy being that impact off the bench? I'm not too sure, but I suppose if I was to lean into something, you'd think it would be very similar to Perth.
It seems like they're best served with some really big impact through that last 20 minutes. I'm not sure Fabian Holland, he seems more of a starter to me.
Yeah, and you hate to say it in terms of with people that go to that bench role, but I think with Paddy, what he can do that last 30 minutes, tiring defences and what he can bring on, I'd start Paddy as well with how he does play, but I just think if you look at Fabian Holland and Paddy Tuipulotu, who's better off the bench? And I just think Paddy, with what he can do in his skills and how big he is and the impact he does make, he's probably just a better starter in terms of, with Fabian Holland probably starting. So yeah, that'll probably be the way that I would go, very similar to what we saw in Perth. That's probably how I'd see it. I
think also you've got to factor in his leadership, Bryn. If you look at the halves of points scored, our first half isn't our issue, we come out of the gates hot. Having his impact, one, to get us across the gain line and dominate both defensively and attack, but more importantly, that calmness, that composure of 50-odd tests, experience and sort of taking charge is also crucial.
We've had a few questions come through about the loose forward makeup, because there has been a lot of change within the loose forwards, I suppose. Vai started off as a 6, Parker seems to have found his place there. We've seen Artie switching back and forth. This was from Zivago Fleming in Australia, talking about a pick and hope selection process currently within the loose forwards, because we've seen so much change. Blackadder and Popoali'i kind of discarded, and then, more recently, Lakai and Satiti coming back into the fray. Does it feel like they're almost settled on a trio?
It's a good question. I get the feeling that Parker and Sevilla are a lock.
Yeah.
That seems to be working well in that balance. But you sort of felt like they had with Wallace, but then obviously Pete's shown something at training or even coming off the bench that they like. So I'm not too sure. I know that's the most unconfident answer I've ever provided. But
that's probably realistic when you look at the changes that have happened week on week on week.
Yeah.
It's hard to be super.
But I think it's I even get muddled myself as how the bench and the 8 positions work. Because as I say, I think Parker and Artie are there. Is he at 8 and 6 is locked in? Could go either way, and then that changes the whole makeup. But I just think of the big bodies, Grand Slam Tour, I think it's just you've got to get your biggest athletes in the 23, is how I would see them thinking.
Just be super physical, Brenna.
That's just the way the international footy is at the moment when it comes to the loose forwards and your forward pack. So, yeah, I think you're looking at your Parker and your Artie with their body of work. You'd know that they're probably going to be the 6 and 7, and then you're kind of deciding with that 8, is it a Wallace or a Larkai? That's probably the thinking that I'm thinking in terms of like what would be that starting lineup, and then you're having that big body. Because I think Larkai and Wallace very similar, I think, in players and I guess size-wise, but yeah, that's probably how I'd be seeing it, depending on if they see Sammy Penny now as a 6 and Locke having him on the bench with the Paddy. Probably don't think that makes the mix. I think Paddy being the out and out on the bench, and then I guess being able to move around with the loose forwards if they feel they want to have an extra loose forward as well. And I guess in that power game, defensively and on attack.
The size of the team we've got a question about as well. We'll go through plenty of your questions this week. This came through from Guy Wright via email. I constantly hear media commentators referring to South African forwards as huge men, and Jip last week referred to their mass at scrum time as a potential differentiator in the Argentina game. I'm confused. Over the past few years, the differences in weights aren't that big. For example, All Blacks 934 versus South Africa 960, that's only 3 kilograms a person. At just 3 kilograms a person, does that add up?
I can assure you it does. Having been in the front row of a lighter pack, it does. But there's many variants of weight. So, like, it's how you utilise it and how your genetics transfers that weight into power. And there is a difference. So when I say mass, that's why I don't say, kilograms.
Yeah.
Because when I say mass, it, to me, in my head, yes, it's your weight, but it's how you use that mass from a sports science point of view in terms of your ability to go through things.
Yeah.
But 30 kilos is a hell of a lot in terms of a scrum.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like 3 kilos, but man, even like running with 3 kilos more, for all of us, you put 3 kilos in your pockets, you go for a run, you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
I get the point because it's such an easy thing, but I suppose we needed the question to explain that there's more to it. If we use Sam Cane as an example, like we've always said when he was playing, like you're hit by him, and then you can get someone that's absolutely shredded and is massive, but they'll bounce off you. So I think like that's how I see it anyway. If you look at the Springboks pack, there's not many you'd want to be hit by.
Yeah, so if we'd be scientists, it's technique plus size equals mass. Is this your physical equation?
I just think weight is just weight. Mass, and I know this isn't backed by any like specifics, but when I talk about mass, it's like it is the weight, but it's how you use it.
I hope that answers.
No, it doesn't answer the question, but that's what I was meaning is their profile is definitely a step above at the moment, especially at scrum time.
Yeah, and plenty of work I'm sure has created that along the way.
A lot of weights, I'd suggest. A lot of weights and a lot of meat.
A fair bit of meat, protein, nice slice and art apples, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, something like that in South Africa. Right, we'll have Ben O'Keefe on next week on the show. And basically, we're going to have a Ask Ben Anything situation. So please jump on the email, aotearoa@rugbypod@sky.co.nz, or within the comments section. If you've got a question, if you've got a law that you want to understand more, if you want to understand the advantage rule or whatever it might be, please send an email through. Ben will come on and he's happy to answer a bunch of the questions and tell us how it works, really, from a referee's perspective. So we look forward to that. But speaking of rules, changing rules is something you're hot on at the moment.
I am, because I was actually fortunate to sit in an airport and then by a strange work of magic, after spending time at the airport, we sat next to each other on the plane, no plan, but Craig McGrath, who's the defensive coach for North Harbour, after I'd commentated, and we spoke probably at length, poor Craig at this stage, but around, like, we were sort of saying, like, what could you change to make the game a little bit better? And one of the ideas he had, which I really liked, is instead of a held up being a dropout, make it a tap play. Not like you can't go to a scrum, you can't do something else like maybe an up and under or anything. Like, you specifically go to a tap play that's become popular and it gets the game moving.
So if you're held up, the attacking team gets a tap play to another crack.
The attacking team.
Yeah.
So you almost, in league, how they get held up and they get back and they quickly play the ball. It'd be as simple as that. Held up, then you're going back, you're setting your tap play and we're off again.
Yeah.
And it's, because defensively what we're seeing now is quite negative tackle techniques, but smart. But they're not looking to dominate. They're looking to just almost absorb the hit and fall back and have it held up. And I just really liked it. And I said, thank you, I'm going to steal that. But I have given them credit. The other one, and I'm interested on Bryn's thoughts on this, but a quick tap off a maul or scrum infringement. So there's the free kick at scrum time, but I'm thinking even more because there's so many penalties around the maul and we just kick back to the corner and it's a maul. Now, I know our Springbok fans are going to have an adverse reaction to this, and I'm not trying to say for international game, maybe it's at other levels or international, but then from that you can either take the tap from anywhere, and I think the Nick White try, it wasn't his try, he put the grubber through against South Africa and he took it from like the middle of the scrum. It wasn't actually behind the scrum where normally, and the play was allowed to go on. I'm thinking that is something that you can just tap from anywhere, from a scrum. Yeah. And you see how quick he could get that ball, he put the kick through try. Yeah. I'm just thinking around them more. It's all generated to right, let's get the game back going, rather than, I suppose, everyone breaking up, kicking to the corner and then the same thing every time.
Yeah.
But if I had a good maul, I'd be saying you're an idiot, James. So, but I suppose it's just a couple of ideas. And then I got one more. And then we can discuss what you think of my three. I love the 50-22, and I think you shouldn't have to have a ruck. I think you can pass back over the 50 and still go for the 50-22. Now, reason being is because it just opens up so much from an attacking point of view, but also defensively. Defence has just dominated our game for so long. This would make it so challenging, especially in phase play or broken play or turnover play, around how are you going to cover that backfield? Are you going to come up to try and bring line speed? You'd have to, if you're going to bring line speed, you're going to have to hit someone, because if it gets to that edge, you're in trouble. And I just think it would be awesome to see what would happen.
Jip, I think out of the three things that I do like reading yours, the tap play for the absorbing hip, I love that with Craig McGrath. I think the mauls and the free kick with the scrum with the Nick White, I enjoy that. I just think if the 50-22, does that implement more kicking?
If you watch now, as soon as there's a breakdown over the 50, it changes the backfield straight away. You can't do that. If they can pass back, you've got to stay in that pendulum sort of space, and you've got to release from here. So there's space somewhere that you can use through the hands, or crossfield kick, or flick pass like I did against Canterbury, one of the two.
There you go, Ross. You can be able to put that flick into the show. But no, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. I just think, I just do think about it. Do we see enough kicking? Yeah, I think the points you do raise in terms of being able to change the backfield. If there's three in the field, then you've got to be able to run and take it. But yeah, the media thing. The media thing that I just thought was just around, will there be more kicking? I think there's a lot more kicking done probably now than there was probably 10 years ago. So it was my other side of the coin that I was thinking. But you do bring up a good point around taking the picture when you do see it.
It's an outstanding law, James.
It's an outstanding law. They'll call it the Parsons rule, and it'll change the game.
A front rower asking for 50-22s.
I do like the held up thing, because I do feel it's weird that the defensive team gets awarded for holding up a team that got over their try line. That doesn't seem right. No. If you got over the try line, you should be awarded for that, unless you knock it on.
But don't you love the tap plays too? Like, that's what I loved about it most.
You want a wall play.
Oh, mate, it's just so, I think, Moana Pacifica were the most entertaining tap plays and scored some great tries. Imagine, but even just the urgency that you can just sprint back to the 5 and tap and go, you've got to, it's helter-skelter, it's all go. That's entertaining.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I don't think people would be against that.
No.
I'm not sure anyone really is passionate about a dropout.
No. And some people are passionate about them all. So, even if we just take them all away, I just added that this afternoon because I just came up with it on the drive over. But the scrum definitely, I think, would be awesome.
Yeah.
Imagine a clap scrum, Bryn. It goes down and you can just tap it and go.
Oh yeah, like it's just speed, and it puts the other team in chaos either side of the ball. So I think I just really think it's a great rule. Whether that can happen or not, James, but if it does happen, it'll definitely be the James Parsons rule, because I think I just love the idea of that, because like you look at like you talk around the reference around Moana Pacifica and even like Leinster, you look at kind of all those plays that are close to the line. I know we're talking like obviously that's the close to the line example, but somewhere in different parts of the field, being able to just tap the ball. Nick White's one being able to kick the ball in behind. It'll just make the game speeding up, and defences will just have to be on high alert, because I think at the moment we've touched on even a lot on this show around how can attack be better, how can we be able to open up the game a little bit more, because with how this defensive line speed pressure is really hindering, I guess, the attacking side of the ball. So some really great solutions there, James. I love that tap play with you and Craig McGrath on that plane ride.
Do you know what I've enjoyed the most? Is the fact that you've called me James.
I don't know why I've done that, actually. Yeah, I don't think I've called you James in the last 15 years since I've known you.
I referred to myself as James. like my mum's hiding around here somewhere.
And you're about to get in trouble.
Yeah, slap me on the head. I'm even HIA.
So we could start next week with Ben O'Keefe. We'll start the campaign there, get ratification from a current referee, and then after that, how do we go to Super Rugby, try to get it going there, and then we make our way to World Rugby? Is this a multiple-step phase across the line?
Yeah. Well, I've sort of teased it out with Jack.
Oh, yeah?
Around it. Obviously, you've still got to apply to World Rugby and stuff, but I think Super Rugby have shown the appetite to try things. But I don't know. I actually haven't thought that far ahead.
Right.
I was just excited to talk about my ideas. Actually, it was Craig McGrath who got me thinking about it. That's when I started going, okay, because he asked me the question, if you could change something, what would it be?
Yeah.
A couple of code heads, though. What did you do on your plane trip?
What a treat. So
talking about the laws of rugby.
Were there three of you on those seats? And was
I was window and he was middle, and I don't know who was on the end.
Yeah. Whoever they were.
Yeah.
They're not going to get
I think they slept.
Gosh.
They heard tap plays and mauls and switched off.
Just, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Still, don't forget the 50-22. I think that's a good idea too.
If you, a family member or friend, wants to get into rugby shape, we have the giveaway to suit. Along with All Blacks trainer Dr. Nick Gill's Rugby Ready team, we're trying to get the rugby community, whether you're a player or fan, fit and strong. Each week, one winner will receive 4 weeks of free access to the Rugby Ready Perform membership, with full access to all of Dr. Nick Gill's pre-season, in-season, off-season and specialty programs to help take your game to the next level. A huge congratulations to this week's winner of the Rugby Ready giveaway, Michael Awori. You've scored 4 weeks of free access to the Rugby Ready Perform membership. Thanks again to everyone who entered. We loved reading your stories. And if you didn't win this time around, don't worry. You're still in the running. So keep those amazing submissions coming. And it could be your name that we announce next week. Want in? It's simple. Just DM Rugby Ready on Instagram with the code ARP and tell them why you'd love to win. And of course, if you miss out, you can get 75% off memberships through ARP by going to the link or using the QR code below. Now, you knew it was coming. I had to talk about counties almost getting their way into the semi-finals of the NPC against Canterbury at half-time. Very buoyant. Yeah. Very buoyant about that, Jip. You were down there.
Mate, it was... and they went up 10 points up, and the wind, like, I cannot explain the wind. Like, it was ridiculous.
It was howling.
Oh, mate, and it was just straight down the field. And you just thought, okay, Canterbury are going to turn with this, and they'll take away. And it looked like that. But I just feel like there was moments where the game sort of turned in Canterbury's favour when there was probably a breakout up the middle from Nano Saturu and an amazing tackle from Fihaki. But then Mali did that amazing pick up the middle, new stub, another amazing backfield tackle. Like one-on-one Mali, you think he wins that all day. Great tackle there. But then he gets a run down the left-hand flank not long after, and they're getting the entry in the 22. If he had just cut back in to set another phase, they bet 60 defenders on the day. Like, it was there. I just felt like that was the moment that it was there, but obviously got tackled out. And it just changed, like, I don't know, Canterbury seemed to grow from that. Then they had their opportunities with kicks at goal. But for me, it was like Canterbury that we know in extra time just rolled the sleeves up down that field. And then there's a big turnover from Matonga, but it was so methodical, that extra time from Canterbury.
So that was the Ashley and Martin turning point for you?
For me, probably just that moment in the second half where Counties, I felt like, man, they could have grabbed that game. And they let Canterbury back into it.
Nana Satoro threw a bad pass to the right. That was on there too. There was a few...
Yeah, they created so much. Like, they bet 60 defenders. Like, this is the best defensive system in the comp. They tackled, what did Canterbury tackle at? 82%. Like, they've tackled high 90s. They've been dominant tackles, most of it. But I said going into this game, if there's one team that I'd be nervous if I was Canterbury, it's Counties. Like, it took a mammoth effort from the number 1 seed to stop the run they had. Like, that's how hot they were running.
Yeah.
Like, that is how hot they were running.
Yeah.
Like, they were an unstoppable force until they met extra time.
You know, the amount of tackles that Canterbury had to make, you know, you talk around the defensive side, the amount of, you know, defenders beat in that the Counties boys were able to do. Like, I know they played extra time, but 170 tackles in that second half. Like, from Canterbury, which, you know, in terms of when you're talking around winning defensive championships and winning championships through defence, I know the percentage probably wasn't where it was wanting, but, you know, they were able to find a way to get themselves into that second half and that extra time to be Canterbury what we were used to. The methodicalness, being able to score in the 86th minute through being able to go really nice and close and then being able to score out wide with Chay Fihaki in the second half. Kind of from then, they probably should have played like that probably in the lead up. But the win, Jip, I don't know how bad it was there, but it looked like pretty bad. And I think both teams probably did struggle in that first part of both halves, actually, when they were going into that win. The kicking side, it didn't seem like you could kick. And I think in the second half, when Counties actually held on to the ball, they put the kicking away for the second half. They were awesome. Like, for that whole second half, the way they were able to hold on to the ball, and the Canterbury team just had to tackle. And look, they did have 11 turnovers, Canterbury, but they looked really good, Counties, holding on to that ball with their big ball athletes, cleaning the efficiency at the ruck. So yeah, it was a great semi-final, a great quarter-final, sorry, but I think the back end of that game, you kind of saw Canterbury be Canterbury in that extra time period, but Counties had more than enough opportunities to be able to get that job done.
I think Alatimu as well, going down in the warm-up. So when I did the pre-match interview with Rion, the coach of Counties, he was like, I said, what's been the key to unlocking your attack? And he goes, AJ Alatimu coming back. Then I heard he's done his groin and he's out. I was like, that's not ideal.
Yeah.
That's not ideal. The main guy, the main cog. But yeah, they still did amazing well. Popoali'i, I don't know if he's got a super contract, but someone sign him.
What an incredible story. 28 years old, only in his second year of semi-pro rugby, and to play like he has. He kind of reminds me of Falatoi Penny from Southland. Big body.
Very similar.
Good kicking game, great skill.
Great kicking game.
Get over the advantage line. And here's two guys who have both clumped through club footy and made it late into the NPC and are doing an incredible job.
Yeah, and you get the feeling that they're like, just got a chip on their shoulder and want to make a statement every game. But some of it's a great comparison. It's very much light for light, but some of his ability in traffic, like Nano Saturu's got a great step and we all know about it. But if you watch the feet on Popoali'i, it is unbelievable.
And he's a biggish body. He's a solid guy.
But he's so light on his feet. And then when he decides he wants to go through you, talk about using mass really well, he does that too.
Yeah. So surely there's someone. I think that...
I have no doubt.
There's a bunch of teams, I think, that are looking at Penny. I think that MP and a few teams are looking at him.
There's no doubt. If he's not here, there'll be an Australian team that'll snap him up in seconds.
Yeah.
Or a French team, or a Japan team.
Dude, someone's
taking him.
Yeah, and
Kubota Spears.
What a way to get into a professional career. Imagine getting your first full-time pro contract as a 28-year-old, Brenner.
It's a great story, isn't it? It's been able to see that you can still go through the grassroots and been able to apply a trade, and some people mature and being able to play rugby at a certain level in the later part of their, well, not life, but I guess in the terms of the rugby stages. So yeah, both deserving. The two players you have talked about, I think Kubota would love him over here. I think we're looking for a 12 with a few injuries. So I think the opportunities, if hopefully they are in New Zealand, the team does pull trigger to be able to sign them, because they're very deserving of the way that they've both played. Popoali'i as well, he was outstanding on the weekend, being able to get over the advantage line, the skill set that he was able to have as well throughout the whole duration of the NPC. Definitely worth getting a contract, both of those men.
Mate, just tell them to go watch 100 minutes. He doesn't need to cut up his best highlights. That's enough. Go watch that game.
It was pretty.
It was outrageous.
It was. Speaking of outrageous, Chay Fihaki, now that you talk about the wind being that strong, you couldn't kind of see it on the television, but having a crack from well over 70
minutes. And I mean, it was ambitious, but he does have I've seen Sean Stevenson do this at Harbour Stadium before, not during a game, but so I thought, well, if he strikes it well, there's enough breeze. Like the posts were basically nearly blowing over. That was ridiculous. And you could probably see when he hit it from 50 how easy it was. But I think it was just... You know, like a golf swing.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at golf, so Bryn, you correct me if I'm wrong. It's almost like the slower you swing, the further it'll go. You almost just felt like he felt, oh, maybe this is 5 metres out of range, and just tried to give it the old heavy whack.
Yeah.
And just didn't get that lever going.
Yeah.
For all the kicking I did.
The heavy whack, Brenner, as a golfing pro, does that generally leave you in the trees or down the middle of the fairway?
I can't hit the ball big either, or I can kick it big, so I definitely don't fit into that mold. But yeah, I think Chay Fihaki, when I actually did see him do it, when I was there, they used to call him the cannon, because he would, very similar to Sean Stevenson, probably not at that length, but 65, sometimes 70 with a very big wind, which we probably saw it in Christchurch. But yeah, I think probably just a little bit too far, but with a crack, that wind would look terrible. To be able to play into it. It
was so good. It was what? Tom Christie's just like, I'll take the post, thanks. Oh, holy dooly.
Yeah, geez, I haven't seen a win like that in a long time. I can't imagine what the players are going through and trying to figure out solutions. Because even the line out as well, Jip. Imagine being a hooker in those conditions.
I tell you what, you really knew who has a tight spiral. Because the only way you've got to have a real razor tight spiral, otherwise it's gone. And George Bell had a very
tight spiral. You were quite excited.
I was very impressed by it. I was like, this is really impressive in these conditions.
You think they got him
how tight? Maybe, man. That was really tough. Well, it probably did it. They probably made the mind up before that, but it was a crisp start.
That was a spiral.
Very crisp.
There are only about 12 people in the whole country that appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. It's me.
Well, it got me to do a bit of research on what the longest kicks ever succeeded in Test footy are. The longest in Test footy is 70 metres. Wales, Paul Thorburn, from 70 metres versus Scotland. So we're talking about at sea level. We're not talking about on the high veld, although France Staines kicked one from 64 metres on the high veld. 70 metres in a test match.
What year?
1986.
Oh, and it's not even good technology.
You're probably a heavy leather ball, just absolutely whacking it.
Did they mark the field right? I don't want to take it off him. That's a long way.
You're going to be sued for defamation.
Yeah.
This is probably his greatest moment.
What was the ground, though? It must have been an open field ground.
It didn't actually say. But look, I'm imagining it's either the old Cardiff Arms or Murrayfield.
Yeah. Jeez, my toupee would have blown off that day.
Longest from a New Zealander was Dan Carter, 58 metres in South
that was South
Africa as
Africa,
well. Yeah. But again, got a bit of thin air there to play with in comparison to the 70 metres at sea level.
I think David Havili at Eden Park was a little bit longer than that, Ross. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was 60. All right. In the middle. Might be, sorry.
Could be. I only looked at Test footy.
Test footy, mate. Come on.
Sorry, mate. Listening ears are off.
Bryn Hall for St. Peter's. 75 metres at high school.
AstroTurf.
Definitely a small field as well, so... Yeah, the lines and the metre aren't pretty good there as well at the cage.
But it's actually quite exciting. Kicking a ball that far, he went to step up to the 10. I was like, oh, this is cool.
I'm not going to lie. More of me thought he would get it than not. But I suppose that's showing the wind.
Yeah.
The wind was ridiculous.
It was. There was plenty of good footy in the quarterfinals outside of Canterbury versus Counties. Obviously, Otago are looking really strong. We touched on them earlier in the show. But boy, the way they almost blew it, but kept themselves in it and went the whole way, impressive.
Yeah, very impressive, especially with the lineup of Waikato. You know, like it was, you almost felt like it was going to happen, but they stayed way more composed. And I think, interesting enough, I did some looking into the 4 semi-finalists, and all 4 are the top 4 in dominant tackles. And I just find that interesting because they're all, except for probably Hawke's Bay and Canterbury, they're all 4 of them are relatively low in breakdown turnovers. So their defensive technique is clearly like, and they're quite, their accuracy in the tackle's low, so they will create opportunities, but when they hit, they force a lot of tackle turnovers, they force errors because they're, you know, like your rushing skill set, and I just think that was probably the difference. You know, like Otago was 6 from 8, 6 tries from 8 entries in the 22, where Waikato was 6 from 11. You know, so like, and I'm not saying that's all built around that defensive strategy, but if you look a lot of the time, it was either rushing a skill set or a big collision with, you know, sort of 2 bodies versus 1. So I think it's an interesting thing to look at coming into this weekend, having the four teams that have dominated the collision most defensively, get the feeling that may dictate terms.
Brenna, let's have a look at these semi-finals. Otago versus Bay of Plenty. What are your thoughts on Bay of Plenty's chances going to Otago to pick up that win and make their way into the big dance again?
They definitely have a chance. I think, you know, playing in those kind of conditions, especially at Forsyth, will definitely help with the players that they do have. And I think, you know, Eklund could be a big loss. You look at the stitches that he had on his face. I think in terms of the set piece wise, he's a big part of what they do. So I think set piece wise, not having Kurt, if he does play, I'm not too sure, might be tough. But I really enjoyed the second half. Like, I think it was a pretty not a pedestrian style from Tasman, but they kind of did go into the pressure game, and I guess they probably were trying to limit the attacking side of what we saw with the Bay Plenty. But I think their click attack they scored in the 60th minute, and being able to, I guess, hold on to the pressure that was coming from the kick game from Tasman, they were able to score tries off that. And I think, you know, the penalty try to be able to win the game as well, they stayed in it in that second half. So I think the experience of what they've probably shown the last 2 to 3 years, losing a final, getting a win against a Tasman team, which I think, you know, is a tough way to win sometimes when you're playing that kind of pressure cycle game, a few moments here and there, and they were able to do it in that second half. So there's definitely enough for them there. I think there's a lot of experience within that group as well. I think Lucas Cashmore played a really good role when it was pivotal with Sinton, a young 9 that played well. But I think also Richard Judd, when he came on in that second half and his experience was shown, they did enough to be able to get the win against Tasman on the weekend.
I think you've got to look back to the Auckland game and the Waikato game and just look how accurate the kick strategy of Otago is. They score so many points from effort areas in their kick chase, but also their kick choice. You know, with Miller, Gilbert, Pledger or Hasty, and even Umanga Jensen and Nareki, like they kicked 33 times for over 1,000 metres, and they know how to execute that strategy under the roof. It's not like when the Highlanders won in 2015, it was the same. You know, you had Bender, you had Nuggie, Lima. They almost strangle you into this false sense of security that you're catching the backfield and you're under the roof and you can razzle dazzle, and they force you into errors. So I honestly think, and I agree with Brent, I think Bay of Plenty's kick strategy the other day was first class as well. But I have a feeling that if they are allowed to dictate terms via the boot, Otago, with home ground advantage, they probably go in as favourites.
Kurt Eklund's injury.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. That's one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen.
And it was a sprig. Was it the sprig when he tackled?
And just
It must have just...
like the Joker.
Yeah.
Right
But it was like Unga, and then there was down here. You know, 60 stitches. He's bounced back as Kurtie does. He takes life pretty well, to be fair. Most people would be in pain, but he's shared the footage, and Whew, that would...
That's nasty.
I know he'll be confident of getting back if they get another week, but whew.
Yeah. You won't be seeing his tight spiral for a couple of weeks.
No. And it's probably all too inviting for an opposition player to just check it out.
Yeah, get the finger in there. Because, I mean, he's so into fishing.
Yeah, well, that's what he said. Because I was travelling when the game was, I hadn't seen the game, and then him and Naitoa were doing that thing, and they said he'd been fish hooked, and I was like, oh, who's done that? That's a really good job. I can't believe, for 15 minutes, I thought that was done by a finger. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely brutal either way. So, you think Otago?
Yeah, I'm just going home.
You're going home advantage, Otago, then through.
And the Miller Gilbert, I don't know, they've got something going at the moment.
They're a smart team. And you're Otago as well, Brenna?
No, I'm going to go Bay of Plenty. Yeah, I'm going to go Bay of Plenty. I think, just with kind of things that I did talk about, I think the experience, then being able to be there or thereabouts the last couple of years, I think they get over the hurdle. And I think, again, it's Otago's probably first time being in this position for quite a while, especially in a semi-final and this kind of level. So does that play into what can happen pressure-wise? I'm not too sure. I just think I'm just going to take the experience of Bay of Plenty in the last couple of years and the way that they're able to finish that second half. I think there's enough there for them to get the job done in Forsyth.
Just looking at my notes here, the point I didn't bring up about Bay of Plenty, they've created the slowest ball. So everyone has a crack at the breakdown. So that will create opportunities of space, but Otago are going to need to be very, very clinical with their clean-out, their attacking clean-out.
Right, and they'll get strangled.
Yeah.
Right, okay, what about Canterbury versus Hawke's Bay? I was a little bit surprised. I thought that Taranaki might win that game, Brenna. Just, seeing it on paper and seeing how they've gone and the fact that they went there and put 60 points on them in Hawke's Bay last year, they weren't afraid of going there. But, what do you think about Hawke's Bay's chances against Canterbury?
The blueprint for them is to be able to win the physicality breakdown around the hard defence. Because if you are able to do that with the likes of, the Whailangi, even Greg, I think even Milan as well was really good in and around those short quarters. Flanders, those guys, if they're able to get on the front foot ball, four of the tries that they were able to score on the weekend, Falau Fakatava was big in and around being able to help towards them get results around that, because at the moment, his ability to be able to play with ball in hand and his decision-making around who he's hitting and being able to go himself was one of the reasons why I think they won that game on the weekend. So knowing that the Canterbury side and how well they are defensively, you'd have to think that they're going to be really good in and around that hard defence. But I think if they're able to get, somewhat quick ball, physicality at the breakdown, being able to get over the advantage line, getting high cleans and bringing Falau to get in around that ruck, I do give them a chance with what I saw on the weekend. But it's a tough task going down to Canterbury. And I think Canterbury as well, they'll know that they probably got away with one there with the sloppiness that they did play. I know the win was tough, but you have to think that you're probably going to see a little bit more fine-tuning and them being a little bit more good around the execution, especially with what we probably saw in that extra time, and that more so being the Canterbury that we do see in the semi-final.
75% gain line, 31% dominant tackles opens up opportunities for Falau Fakatava, but I think a player that has been more influential on Falau performing is McClutchy. And I feel like McClutchy is such a Rasley player himself. He reacts so well off Falau, and even if Falau runs into trouble, he's there as a nice little bailout for a sharp pass or a short pass. He's not sitting back watching it and isolating him, and I just think their combination, if the forwards can match Canterbury, this Canterbury pack is not going to be happy. Yeah. So I think up front Parsons, but if they can deliver that dominance, Hawke's Bay probably have the more experienced 9-10 pairing, which you'd think in a game like this they will know how to dictate terms. The problem being it's at night, which isn't that impactful for Hawke's Bay, but it does suit Canterbury. It brings the best out of Canterbury because their game's based around that dew and that kick. So,
Brenna, do you think that Hawke's Bay will do it, or do you think they just can do it?
For Hawke's Bay to get the job done, they're just going to be on for the whole 80 minutes. All the effort areas, all the little battles, all the little momentum shifts, not being able to have a snowball effect for periods of time, that's kind of what's going to be required for this Hawke's Bay group. And, they've done it. They've been able to play shield rugby over the last couple of years, they get an understanding of what it's like to be in pressure situations. But I think it's just a step too far, considering maybe if it is a little bit later in the day, the contestable game, the suffocation game, which probably Canterbury with their set piece, being able to go to that, it might be a little bit too much for them. But to give them a massive chance, if they can win that physicality breakdown battle and get Falau and McClutchy being able to play on top of teams and then open up their back line with Sullivan and Co out wide and low, they've got every chance to go down there and get the job done.
Discipline as well. That'll play into Canterbury's hand. If you give penalties away, they'll just keep. So they had a high penalty count. Look, they go after it. They won't die wondering like Hawke's Bay will go after it, but that does. They'll have to be very accurate, especially defensively. I think they can do it. Man, that was a hell of a game. 100 minutes, shorter turnaround. That'll have an impact. And yeah, I just think if the pack can match it, that Falau, Whakatava and McClutchy combo with Azan Sullivan is looking pretty red hot.
You mentioned Devin Flanders. That guy is an absolute machine.
Oh, man. He's so good. He's so good. Like, I don't even know how to explain it, but like he's just constantly on the go. You talk about big moment. Well, I talk about players that can do big moments. He lives for them. Sometimes unseen with a clean out or a tackle or work off the ball desperately out of camera shot to get across and make a tackle. He's just the complete sort of package you want, and they follow him.
Yeah.
They follow him. I think, I'm not just saying this because my cousin, I think Tom has played a massive season as well, in terms of the work and the tough carries and the tough tackles he gets through his work at the breakdown. And now Devery's back as a core leadership spine of that pack. They're peaking at the right time.
Yeah, they get through some work.
Yeah, they do.
Get through some work.
They do.
They'll get through some work this weekend against Canterbury, so 2 massive semi-finals in the NPC to look forward to. Thank you once again for joining us on the show. Please send us an email at aotearoarugbypod@sky.co.nz. If you've got anything for Ben O'Keefe next week, please send it through. Thank you very much to you all for tuning into the show. Thank you to Ashley and Martin Medical Hair Centres for looking after us, and thank you to everybody behind the scenes who helps us get this to air. Thank you very much. Mā te wā.